right now. We are all so stressed out. This is such an unprecedented thing that is happening, but we would be remiss if we didn't try and take the time to talk about it because, according to Representative Judy Chu here in California, uh, about 100 assaults on Asians are being reported every day. Now, Andrew, I think you would probably agree that China should bear some responsibility for trying to cover up the crisis. And there are suspicions that they have intentionally misreported the death toll there. And it still breaks my heart to think about that Wuhan physician who was jailed when he tried to sound the alarm about what he believed was a new and deadly virus. So, how should we be thinking about China right now?
I think it's important to distinguish between the Chinese government and the Chinese people, but certainly the Chinese government bears a lot of responsibility for the fact that it covered up the seriousness of the crisis early on. It was not sharing data with the rest of the world that could have helped not just us, but other countries prepare for this pandemic. And the seeds of this crisis certainly um, can be laid at the feet of the Chinese government. But then there's the Chinese people who suffered some of the same things that we're suffering. And then there are obviously Asian Americans who are this whole other set of people where
Who aren't even
we were
Chinese?
a world away while some of these decisions were being made by Chinese government officials. So the Chinese government certainly deserves some culpability. And if you're a human being who's trapped in your home right now, it's not, uh, it wouldn't be strange at all to feel a degree of hostility and anger towards Chinese government officials who might have made this crisis worse in its early days. So I understand that impulse very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important that people make the distinction between the Chinese government and Chinese people and Asian Americans. Now, as we all know, the coronavirus would eventually become known as COVID-19. That is how everyone the world over has been referring to it. Now, months into the crisis, President Trump insisted on referring to it as the China virus. So many have said that the virus started there. So why shouldn't it be called the China virus? Andrew, what do you think about that?
I don't see any positive value to calling it the China virus, except to incite hostility. I mean, it has a scientific name, and it's not like if you call it the coronavirus or COVID-19, that that somehow uh, obscures the fact that it originated in China. You know what I mean? Like that. Like there are a lot of things where they have a name that doesn't include the geographical origin, and in this case, including it just seems to me to be a way to incite hostility towards certainly the Chinese government, but also unfortunately Chinese people, and in this case, that extends to Chinese Americans and Asian Americans.
I think that if it had been called the Chinese virus from the beginning, it might be one thing, but months into the crisis, to start calling it the China virus, I can't see how that wouldn't incite people. I do have to point out that President Trump did tweet about this characterization. He said it's very important that we totally protect our Asian American community in the United States and all around the world. They are amazing people, and the spreading of the virus is not their fault in any way, shape, or form. They will be working closely with us to get rid of it. We will prevail together. I appreciate that tweet from him, but Andrew, do you think the damage has already been done?
Yeah, Chinese virus is definitely part of the lexicon at this point. And, I've heard of school children getting called the Chinese virus and being bullied mercilessly. And it's not like when Trump tweets something of a retraction several days later, all of a sudden, like it changes that behavior. So um, to me, it's good that he did that because at least it's an acknowledgement that calling it the Chinese virus has real impacts and consequences. But I don't think it somehow undoes the characterization or the impact it's having on um, hundreds of thousands of people around the country.